Hi, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Good afternoon. Try to take it. Is that better? Is that all right? Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm Arne Anderson, and I am honored to be married to Bill's granddaughter, Robin. We would like to welcome our family and friends that are here today, and those tuning in virtually. A special mention to Bill's brother, Jim, his wife, Joyce, and their children, Karen, David, Susan, and their families, as well as Chad and Shyla. William Gordon Till was from 5 generations of the Tills that have lived in Lloydminster. He graduated from Lloydminster's Meridian School and attended the University of Saskatchewan, graduating in 1948 with a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. He completed 1 year of post-grad studies towards a master's degree in physics before leaving to assist with the work on the family farm north of Lloydminster, where he worked for many years with his father, Will, and his mother, Gertie. He and his wife, Jean, raised 4 children there and also supported a steady stream of cats, dogs, turtles, fish, a duck, and the occasional snake. To supplement family farm income during the slow winter season, he took a job with Harris Electric, managing the service department there. Soon after, he decided to launch his own business. Bill and Jean built Till Communications into a successful 2-way radio communications business. Bill and Jean sold the business in 1985 and were able to retire early, enjoying them about 40 years of post-career life. Bill and Jean remained very active in their community during those retirement years. Bill stayed active with the local Air Cadet 186 Squadron that he joined in 1941. He acted as chairman of the Lloydminster Handy Van Society and also participated in local emergency measures organization, Meals for Wheels, Rotary, and the Concerned Citizens for Senior Care. He also served 3 years on the Lloydminster School Board. Bill and Jean were honored for their contributions by the local Lions Club, being named together as a Lions Citizens of the Year in 2012. Bill was also a founding member of the Sask Alta Radio Club and remained an avid ham radio operator for many years. He was a man with thousands of friends and contacts from literally around the world. Bill was a voracious reader, a keen political analyst and commentator, and was deeply interested in current events on local, national, and global stages. Even in the last weeks of his life, he continued to keep in touch with family and friends. A particular touching comment was made just a few weeks ago when Bill was asked, in context of his health care, what his goals were. He replied that he wished to see his great-grandchildren grow up and was curious to know what they would accomplish in their lives. Even into his last days, Bill's hearing remained sharp and his wit sharper. He was an eternal optimist and a person dedicated to lifelong learning. He adhered to a philosophy learned on the family farm: if something breaks, fix it. If you can't fix it, save it for parts. As his grandchildren often said, Granddad can fix anything. Along with many other anecdotes, questions, and observations raised by Bill during his recent conversations with family, Bill said, "My greatest fear is that I've left something." Let me say this. Bill said, "My greatest fear is that I've left something unfinished." Bill, you need to have no worries in that regard. You took care of your wife and your family. You support your friends and your community. It is now up to us to continue to support each other in the ways you have demonstrated your whole life. Today we will hear a number of tributes from those people close to Bill. As his daughters Barb and Margot come up to share words from the family, we'd like to play a piece of music of personal significance to Bill.
I am Barb Weeb. On behalf of our mom, Jean, and our brother, Bruce, we thank you for joining us as we gather to remember this incredible man, Bill Till. It's a beautiful day, but it's cool and spring-like in Lloydminster. The sun is shining, but as any farmer would note, we need rain.
And I'm Margot. And as all of you who are with us today know, our dad Bill was a unique individual. Over the past few days, we've heard from many people who knew our dad, and we've been touched to learn of the impact that he had on the lives of those who knew him. He certainly had an impact on ours. Dad was a man of integrity, an irrepressible pragmatist, a lifelong learner, a mentor to many, and just an incredibly curious human being who had to know how things work, often by breaking them first. Over the next few minutes, we'd like to share a few stories that we think help to illustrate what made Bill, Bill.
Dad was a man of integrity. He was a man of his word. Dad believed that you should say what you mean and mean what you say. He was honest and humble, always quick to give credit to others. One of his good friends, Jeff Mulligan, noted that Dad fought for causes that were important to people that often could not fight for themselves. Some examples of this were the work that he did to secure an advanced support ambulance for Lloydminster, spearheading many Lloydminster handy van initiatives, and hundreds of hours spent volunteering for groups like the Rotary Club, including ringing the Christmas bells on some very cold winter shifts, and delivering Meals on Wheels to seniors, often to people who were younger than him. This was something that he gave up when he was in his 80s. Community service was in his blood. Always others before himself is how a friend described him. Over the years, he devoted countless hours to local charities. He was on the Lloydminster Public School Board for 3 terms and also served as board chair. As a former teacher, I can tell you that we had many robust conversations about pay scales, much to Mom's dismay. In 2012, Mom and Dad were honored to be jointly named as Citizens of the Year by the Lloydminster Lions Club, a fitting tribute to 2 people who have lived a life of service within our community.
He was Mr. Easygoing. Dad was a real glasses half full guy. The old adage that there are no strangers, only friends we haven't met yet, really fits our dad. His easygoing nature was something to aspire to. Ham radio opened up a world of friends for Dad. And when I lived overseas, it wasn't unusual for me to receive a call from someone that I'd never met saying that they'd connected with my dad on the radio, and if I was ever in their neck of the woods, I should look them up. I took up some of these invitations, and I was always warmly welcomed. I had some delicious home-cooked meals courtesy of Dad's friends. Mom and Dad traveled to see me in Japan and in Australia, and inevitably Dad landed in these places with more friends than I had. On one visit to Australia, he did a tour of outback Queensland with a rural mail carrier who he talked to on ham radio. On another visit, shortly after he'd arrived at the hotel in Brisbane, we heard a honk outside, and Dad grabbed a bag and headed for the door, saying that he was off to see Bob. It was only after he'd left that we realized that none of us knew Bob's last name or where Dad had gone. He turned up about 3 days later with a lot of stories and a firm new friend. From the time we were young, Dad taught us that it was important to dance to the beat of your own drum. That although sometimes life will be hard, you can still have fun along the way and remain true to yourself. And one of Dad's unique traits was that he shared with at least some of his children and grandchildren, was his ability to sleep anywhere. For anyone who was ever in a meeting or having a visit with Dad, and he started to nod off, please be assured that no offense was intended. It was just really hard to say no to a nap when the urge takes you. When I was just entering my teens, Mom and Dad took us to Hawaii, and Barb and Mom and I were in full shopping mode at the international marketplace. Dad wasn't a shopper, and he sat on the bench to wait. And as we came in and out of the shops, we'd leave bags with him. Eventually, we came back to find Dad fully stretched out on a bench in the middle of the marketplace, sound asleep, surrounded by bags. As a self-conscious teenager, I was mortified. And I turned to my mom, who said, "Margot, your dad is a very special person. He doesn't care what other people think." True enough. As his kids, we can tell you that there were many times that Dad could have come down on us hard, but he didn't. Making Dad mad wasn't the worry. Disappointing him was. We won't go into the details of these stories because Mom's here today and we don't want to get in hot water with her. But suffice it to say that on these occasions, the raised eyebrow, the piercing gaze were enough to let us know that he saw all and that he knew all, but that he appreciated an honest confession.
Dad was a lifelong learner. From humble beginnings, Dad came from a family who put an emphasis on education. This didn't just mean school. His own dad had to leave school early in order to take care of the family, but also meant looking for opportunities to challenge yourself. Dad was so incredibly proud of his brother Jim's achievements in the scientific community. He followed his career closely and celebrated his successes. Despite living their adult lives at a distance, whenever they were together, we were always struck by their similarities, their mannerisms, their quick wit, and their searing intellect. In the mid-1970s, Dad decided it was time to get his pilot's license. I'm sure there are many of us here today that enjoyed a flight with Bill over the years. If the wind conditions were good and anyone showed interest, he was always ready to head to the airport. This was a hobby he enjoyed with his oldest son, Rob, who followed his lead, taking out his own pilot's license. Growing up, one of the highlights of the year was the Flying Farmer's Breakfast. This meant getting up very early in the morning, flying to some place in small-town Saskatchewan where it was hard to tell the runway from the field it was in. We pulled up to the hangar, filled up on pancakes and sausages, and we would be home by lunchtime. Dad was a voracious reader right up until the end. As he got older, he joked that his memory being what it was, he only needed to have a few books because he could never remember how they ended anyway. Before there was Google, there was Dad. Any fact that we needed to know, no matter how obscure, Dad had the answer. Want to know what is the wing speed of the ruby-throated hummingbird? Dad was your man.
he was a mentor. So many people have let us know the difference that our dad made in their lives, from Air Cadets to ham radio, to business, to community service. Bill had a gift for making everyone feel important. He provided no BS advice, lessons not only for work or school, but also for life. If he thought you could do better, he let you know and he helped you to get there. It's no secret that Dad loved to communicate. I guess that's where Till Communications came from. Nothing would make him happier than to know today that technology is being used to connect his family and friends. We've heard stories about how he taught people to text, fixed iPhones, set up internet connections, and made computers a lot less scary for newbies. And much of this was when he was on the shady side of 80. The Till boys, as Mom and Dad referred to the many young men who had worked at Till Communications, have shared stories about the lessons that they learned during their years of working together. As our friend Mike Howes put it, Dad was the product and Mom ran the business. What a team they were. No nonsense, get things done, and always remember that the customer comes first. Staff were more than staff. They were family, then and now. Ham radio was the same. We grew up with a lifetime of contests, conveniently scheduled during many major holidays. CQ, CQ, CQ was the soundtrack of our lives.
Dad was curious. Back in the day, our granny got a brand new Singer sewing machine that she was very proud of. Dad was curious about how it worked, and so one day when she went to town, he took it all apart and he put it back together before she got home. Sometime later, she was having some problems with the machine and had the Singer rep check it on his next visit. He seemed rather puzzled, but he was able to do the necessary fine-tuning. The rep told Granny that it was the strangest thing, that the only way that things could have gotten so messed up was like if someone had completely disassembled the machine and put it back together. Busted! I experienced a taste of this myself when the light on the dashboard of my new car went out. It was my first car, and I was very proud of it. It was a digital dash, new technology at the time, and all of a sudden, I couldn't see how fast I was going. The light kept going out. Dad, like always, was quick to volunteer to fix it for me. Mom and I went out for a bit, and when we returned, thinking that it would be fixed, we arrived at the house, and much to our surprise, came home to find every piece of the dash on the driveway. It was neatly arranged for reassembly, but it was a little shocking for me to see. Dad said that he diagnosed the problem and was going out for parts. When he returned, I waited inside until he was finished. When it was all done, we went for a test drive. And we found that, yes, the lights were working, but I had to squint to see them. I turned to Dad, who very proudly said to me that he'd gone to the dealer and the light bulb was going to be $2.14. Being the frugal guy he was, he'd been able to pick up a similar bulb much cheaper at Canadian Tire. It might have been 15 watts lower, but the whole dollar cheaper, and he was able to get some Canadian Tire money to boot. I am grateful he saved me money, but I still couldn't see how fast I was going. I just want to say that Dad will always be my VOR and a spark in my heart.
Dad, you've given us the journey of a lifetime. And we're so very fortunate to have been along for the ride. 73 V5FN.
Thank you, Barb and Margot, for those kind words and stories that I never knew about Granddad. Next, we will hear two piano pieces. The first is by great-grandson Nolan Wiebe, son of Chris and Natalie, followed by granddaughter Sasha Till Rogers, daughter of Steve and Margot. Thank you, Nolan and Sasha. That was really good. Glad I wasn't asked to do a piece. Some of Bill's family have sent in recorded messages, so You will be hearing a couple of those. There's a message from Andrea, James, Madeline, Jim, David, Beth, and Susan. So we will play those next.
I was having a hard time trying to figure out exactly what to share, and so I reached out to a friend. He gave me a few ideas. The first thing that he said was, "Speak from your heart." And so I'm going to try and do that. Granddad was so special to me. He was so special to so many people. But he was really special to me. He felt like a close friend. Someone that would invite me over. We'd sit in his living room in just total comfort, a place of calm and relaxation. Grandma and Granddad's house is such a restful place. We would just kind of sit across from each other and have these long conversations, and he was so open to my questions. He never withheld his words. He was so open to sharing about anything that I would ask. I asked a lot about our family, and we'd also have good chats about world news and politics, and it was just a space that I felt like I was really encouraged to have my own opinion, and even if we had pushback, he would push back with his views, but he would take in my points and consider them as well. He was so well read on so many different topics, and he was such a teacher, and I loved listening to him tell stories. I feel like this is a very sacred role of grandparent and grandchild, to be able to be in a position just to sit and receive. And he just gave so freely. There was also a lot of reflection as I was looking through old photos and just seeing how present he's been in my life. He was there. He was there. He was always there. He was there at my hockey games, my ball tournaments, my recitals, my graduations, my university grads, and I saw lots of photos of him with other people at their grads. He was just there. He was, even when he wasn't there, he was usually the one taking photos and chronicling our lives. He was a memory keeper, a keeper of memory. He was one that remembered. He remembered stories, and I was always amazed at how well he could remember dates and people from the past and events. He would think about it for a moment, just kind of it was like he was thumbing through and reaching back to retrieve the information, and he was just an encyclopedia of knowledge, and I really find myself grieving the loss of all that information. He was such an impressive man with so many different interests. He was so many different things for so many different people. And he had just such a big heart that he wore on his sleeve. So to close this share, I would just like to share a couple of things that Granddad has taught me. Words of wisdom from Granddad. The first one is be curious. He'd always say, it doesn't matter how old you are, you should learn something new every day. He was a perpetual student. He was someone that lived by that example. And I always really admired him for that, for his curiosity and his ability to learn new things. The second one is be a good person. And I say that a bit tongue-in-cheek because good is a subjective word. But I really felt like he lived by these words of treat others as you would like to be treated. I also think he imparted this idea of taking responsibility for oneself, giving back to the community, being a steward, showing what it means to be a part of a collective. And the third one is be yourself. Express yourself. Stay true to you. Granddad didn't seem like somebody who cared what other people thought. He would wear the same clothes every day. And he pretty much said whatever he wanted. Granddad was one of a kind. I can just hear his message to us grandchildren. Go forward, be bright, be free. Granddad, I love you. I will really miss you.
Dear Granddad, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. You engaged my interests from a young age and ensured my questions always found an answer. You taught me to always seek for the solutions I need. You kept me pursuing discovery within life's simplicities. You taught me Morse code, which immediately got us scolded by a museum caretaker for touching the displays. Letting me play with your cameras led me to discover a way to capture my memories. Something physical I can always reference. Thank you for these gifts, for the memories I have of you are captured with pictures. Every time I turn on the radio, I'm reminded of the constant buzz emitting from the basement. Thank you for leaving me with these everlasting impressions. I love you, Granddad, and may you rest peacefully beyond this physical plane.
This is Madeline Till speaking, Bill's granddaughter. I'm going to read a short passage from my mom in honor of Bill, and then follow up with a quick one of my own. The following words are from Lisa Adams, Bruce Till's wife. We all knew Bill in our own way, and I had the honor of knowing Bill for 32 years as my father-in-law. Many of you perhaps knew Bill better than me, but as his daughter-in-law, I came to a unique appreciation of Bill by being married to his dear son, Bruce. When our family volunteered to honor Bill today, I thought, how do I best describe the gentleman who unwittingly chaperoned his son on what was to be a first date? A cozy little date, just the three of us. Way back then, Bill struck me as a solid middle-aged gent with quiet manner, sometimes salty humor, and a sharp observation. He didn't disappoint over the years. As I set to writing, I happened upon this quote by an author Bill and I mutually admired, a quote I believe closely describes the William G. Till I know. The most radical, audacious thing to think is that there might be some point to working hard and thinking hard and reading hard and writing hard and trying to be of service. Kurt Vonnegut. Our core values as humans are revealed not just through the philanthropic passions we pursue, but in the time and devotion we give to our family and in how we treat others. Our values are revealed in the generosity of spirit we show to family, friends, employees, and colleagues. The quality of our daily human interactions is how we convey our priorities to others. One immediately respected Bill's ethos of working hard, performing the honest work of which Vonnegut speaks, work benefiting the lives of others, providing comfort and well-being for family. I'm the grateful beneficiary of these as intergenerational Till family values. Along with innovation, working hard, and working smart to provide the best for family and being of service to others, these values passed from industrious father to equally industrious and generous son and daughters. Over the years, I grew to appreciate that the inherited family trait of reading a book or magazine at the table during mealtimes, not as an insult to the cook, but rather as a tribute to keeping one's mind engaged, thinking hard and reading hard, as Vonnegut says, gathering information and shaping new ideas. This hard reading and hard thinking trait has spurred a lively exchange of views, opinions, and actions across chilled generations. Finally, I came to love my father-in-law by having the honor of witnessing over years a quiet, confident bond of love and respect between a father and his son, a trait of loving hard in service of supporting each other, a generosity of loving spirit that flourishes down through Bruce and our family to our son and daughter, Bill's grandchildren, James and Madeline. Thank you, Bill, for a gift of life well served, a life of working hard, reading and thinking hard, and loving hard, all in the best possible way. For myself, as Bill's granddaughter, I don't have much to add that my twin brother and mother haven't already said so eloquently. My brother and I felt that our granddad's pride so deeply, and for me, that continues to be a gift. I'll never forget the crackle of the ham radio in the basement, Granddad's sense of humor, or the way he flopped back in the armchair to take a look back at the rest of the family every time we gathered. I'm proud of you, too, Granddad, until we meet again.
This is Bill's son, Bruce. I'd like to share some notes that were supplied to me by my Uncle Jim, Bill's brother. He says that his fondest memories of Bill were when they were growing up as boys. The first photo shows them two as very young boys sitting on a step. My Uncle Jim writes, "This photo was taken about 1934, illustrating Bill in the role of big brother. Although he was 4.5 years older than myself, we spent a rather surprising amount of time together. I learned a great deal from him. For example, we played chess with each other. I was forced to concentrate very hard in an attempt to keep up with him. We also made a telephone out of 2 tin cans and a long piece of string. It worked well and provided early evidence of Bill's lasting interest in communications technologies." The second photo shows them standing side by side, both in uniform. Uncle Jim writes, "This photo, taken in about 1943, shows us in uniforms of the Air Cadets. It was a patriotic thing to do during World War II. Bill, while still a teenager, looks mature enough to enlist in the Royal Canadian Air Force. I'm very clearly still a youngster. I think that this is the time when our age difference was the most obvious." Uncle Jim adds that he has many more memories that he cherishes, just like everyone else in the Till family, as Joyce has noted.
Hi everybody, I'm Dave, Jim Till's son, in case you haven't heard my voice in a while. I wanted to express my condolences on the passing of the man that I knew as Uncle Bill. I saw him every few years when he visited our family in Toronto. I always enjoyed talking with him as his perspective on life was so different from my own. My thoughts go out to all of his branch of our family and to everyone who knew him during his lifetime. He will be greatly missed.
This message was sent to us by my mom's sister, Beth Wager. When I think of Bill, my first thought is books. He loved reading, and I envied him his library. After Reinert and I moved to the acreage, I'd lost several friends as a result of moving my books. I decided to borrow library books instead of purchasing them. Margot would appreciate that decision, but I do miss my books and understand Bill's need to be surrounded by his. Bill was introduced to having a teenager around when I came to live with them in 1964. I'm sure this was a benefit to his own children, mostly because he learned to keep things, like car batteries, well out of the road of new drivers. He and Jean were very generous hosts for that year and contributed greatly to my job prospects. I would not have had the career that I had without the ability to attend Reeves Business College. One of the last times I was in Lloyd, I talked to Bill about that. I'm sure he knew how it benefited me, and I'm glad I told him that I appreciated it. Bill accomplished many, many things in life. He lived a long, full life, and he will be missed.
This is Margot, and I'm sharing a message sent by our aunt, Susan Graham. From Susan. Bill and I didn't have many just the two of us times. My favorite cherished memory is when I was visiting Tawasin, and my dad and mom phoned to say that they'd sold their house and were moving into senior apartments. I got emotional, realizing that this was their last move by choice. The next was a nursing home, or... Bill took me for a long walk on a beach somewhere. He talked and talked, just about nothing, and that seemed to calm me, and I stopped the tears. It was such a bonding moment, and I'll never forget it. He was just there for me. Bill was in my life from the very moment I was born. Mom was pregnant with me at Jean and Bill's wedding. Bill either had a camera or a book in his hand. He took some great family photos, and I remember hearing of the race with the tornado, Jean driving and Bill taking pictures. Another great memory was the airplane trip we took with him. He circled our farm so I could get a picture of it. Bill was an honorable man. He worked hard for his family and for the community. And as for me, I will miss his huge smile and fantastic bear hugs. I loved his wit and his chuckle. He didn't have a laugh as much as he had a deep chuckle. Bill's voice was so distinct that I hope I never forget it. Pictures give you the visual, but no record of his voice. I'll miss you, Bill.
I was having a hard time trying to figure out exactly.
Messages from family and friends. Next, we have a tribute from Len Pryor. He's a lifelong friend of Bill's, so we'll hear that next.
Hello, my name is Leonard Pryor, and I am honored by having the Till family ask me to relate some of the activities in which Bill and I were close associates, as well as good friends. I don't remember the first time Bill and I met. It would have been in the early 60s, around the time I married one of his cousins. When I mentioned to Sharon that I was interested in ham radio, she said, "Well, my cousin Bill Till is a ham." I went straight to the phone and called him. Well, I tell you, asking Bill about ham radio was like putting cheese in front of a mouse. The next evening we went to Bill and Jean's for supper. I don't know what we ate, but I do know that I came home from that visit with a whole lot of information, ideas, an old Hammerland receiver with the ham bands marked out on the dial, not to even mention a code practice oscillator and a hand key. In those days, Morse code was a requirement to get a ham radio license. Our common interest resulted in a friendship that ended only last Saturday. We subsequently found many other common interests over the years, but not the least of which was an appreciation for fine single malt Scotch whiskey. That accounts for the beginning of my ham radio adventures as VE5WI, but for Bill it had started many years earlier, either in the late 40s or early 50s. His mentor was a man who worked in communications at the local airport. As anybody who knows Bill knows, he was a pretty ingenious guy. He built his own antennas and fixed his own radios. They worked very well. One of the marks of a successful ham is the number of countries contacted and confirmed. For ham radio purposes, there are around 320 countries. The number varies as political entities change due to revolutions and such. Some of them, like Pitcairn Island, have only 1 or 2 hams on them, so it's very difficult to get them all. Over the years, Bill had contacted something like 315, some of which don't even exist anymore. Around the time that we started hanging out together, Bill was no longer working for the Department of Agriculture and had started the family business known as Till Communications. That sort of slowed his ham activity somewhat, but not completely. He pretty much single-handedly got a VHF ham repeater up and going with the VHF commercial system and was the founding influence in the formation of the local Saskatchewan Ham Radio Club, which he served in every capacity possible. and it's still going and thriving to this day. Ham radio has many aspects to it. Some build radios, some build antennas, and some just generally do day-to-day casual chatting. And then there's contesting. For the information of those who are not familiar with amateur radio, contesting consists of contacting as many stations as possible in a specific time frame, sometimes up to 48 continuous hours. It's a disease, incurable, and we both contracted it, I think from each other. Bill had the technical knowledge, I had the acres, and we both had the enthusiasm. So with the help of Gerard V5FF, who came on the scene shortly after we got started on this project, we built a pretty good contest station, which occupies about 15 acres, but only part of our house. We've been operating contests several times a year for around 30 years now, and have a lot of paper certificates to prove it. But the most important part is the fun we had and the friends we had coming to participate in the contests. Our man Bill was an integral part of that. The world of ham radio has been greatly influenced by the life of Bill Till, V5FM. About 14 years ago, Bill and I, became involved with a group which later became the Lloydminster Concerned Citizens for Senior Care, advocating for more beds for long-term care. We soon found that it would not be that simple, as all aspects of patient care are interrelated, so the activity sort of morphed into other areas, such as ambulance services. Bill took special interest in the ambulance service when he discovered that the needs of the entire area, including Lloydminster and surrounding communities, were not being adequately served due to the conflicting regulations of the two provinces. He spent many hours and made many phone calls to various officials in both governments until that service is updated and is the entity which serves the entire area today. His wisdom and expertise were valuable assets to the organization. I could go on much longer extolling his virtues and contributions to the community, but you don't have the time. Rest in peace, my old friend. You've earned it.
Thanks, Dylan. Photos were a big part of Granddad's life, and anybody that knew him knew that he always had a camera hanging on his neck or close nearby. Here are some photos that we have selected to share with you. Next, we'll invite Bill's son, Bruce, to read a poem in honor of Bill.
Thanks, Arne. The sonnet I'm going to read was written by a young American pilot that joined the Royal Canadian Air Force early in the Second World War so he could participate in the European conflict. He came to Britain and flew a Spitfire with 412 Squadron, RCAF, and was killed at the age of 19 on 11 December 1941 during a training flight. The title of the poem is High Flight by John Gillespie McGee, Jr. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter's silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things you have not dreamed of. Wheeled and soared and swung high in the sunlit silence. Hovering there, I chased the shouting wind along and flung my eager craft through footless halls of air. Up, up the long, delirious, burning blue, I topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark nor ever eagle flew. And while with silent lifting mind I've trod the high, untrespassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God.
Thank you, Bruce. Before we close, I just wanted to say that I was honored when I was asked to lead Granddad's celebration of life this afternoon. Since I met Robin, she always talked about her grandparents and couldn't wait to introduce me to them. I moved from South Africa to Canada and wasn't fortunate to spend as much time with my grandparents, and was just an honor to watch her interact with her grandma and grandpa. Over the last 8 years, I've heard many stories about Granddad and everything he accomplished. And other than that, I know there's going to be many memories. And Granddad, you're the perfect example of what a granddad should be. And I hope to follow in your footsteps one day. Oh, I got to keep going. So in closing, I just want to say, we wanted to say a big thank you to Bill's caregivers and to the medical staff at the Lloydminster and Maidstone hospitals. A special and heartfelt thank you to Dr. Curlis for his care, support, and friendship. Donations in memory of Bill may be made to the 186 Air Cadets Lloydminster Squadron, Border City Connects Caravan, or a donor's charity of choice. Information for donations is available at the McCaw's site. There's a virtual wake tonight from 7 to 8:30. Again, check the McCaw's website for more information. This will be an opportunity to share stories and drink a toast to Bill, and I'm sure there will be many stories. On behalf of Bill's family and the man himself, thank you for joining us today.